I want to welcome you on behalf of ACORD and CSBAG for this dialogue under the theme Economic Recovery and Reigniting Economic Growth.
Because of COVID, our economy drastically failed. We've lost about 600,000 jobs, and our service sector, which had peaked, has been heavily battered.
We take very high consideration and appreciation that the organizers of this conference are looking at how we can quickly recover our economy and do whatever it takes to ignite it in order for us to survive what COVID is doing both to human life and to economies of the world.
I want to thank ACORD and all other organizations that have come together to put up this high-level dialogue on our economy, on how we can improve our resource mobilization and other issues. The financial 2021-22 budget focuses on interventions aimed at policies required to sustain the recovery from socio-economic setbacks caused by the world COVID-19 pandemic. It also focuses, and this is very important, on the transformation of the 3.2 million households engaged in subsistence economy into the money economy, and finally focuses on domestic revenue mobilization strategy. The economic growth strategy for the next financial year is to continue to accelerate the pace of industrialization, building an integrated self-sustaining economy, continue strengthening of the private sector, and promoting inclusive growth through the various wealth creation initiatives like the parish development model. In the coming financial year 21-22, government will invest 200 billion to start the implementation of the parish model. This model is aimed at taking the whole of government development effort to the parish level. The budget for next financial year will be 44.7 trillion Uganda shillings, and will be financed by a mix of domestic resources and external financing. Domestic resources will be 22.4 trillion, but if you add other sources of non-tax revenue, comes 25.1 trillion. External sources, 7.5 trillion. Domestic refinancing, 8.5 trillion. Oil fund, we are getting some money from the oil fund of 200 billion, and that's how our budget will be financed. I would like to inform Ugandans, our public debt remains sustainable in the medium to long term, because we have a choice to make. Should we continue to use the little money that we have domestically to finance our infrastructure, and therefore take like 50 to 80 years to complete them? Or should we borrow now and finish them and generate more money and grow the economy?
Really, I think let's be realistic. I had the same story when I was at the ministry 15 years ago. We said we are borrowing to build infrastructure so that this economy can grow. These are the choices the minister is saying we are still making today. Our choice is to borrow, build roads. We had this conversation 15 years ago. We're in the deeper red, and that time we had negotiated, our debt was below $1 billion. We have borrowed it to 17, 16. Where are the roads? We were talking about building oil roads 15 years ago. We are still talking about building oil roads. How do you build a pipeline? You can't even start a pipeline without these oil roads. But if you're taking 15 years to build oil roads, Total, Talo, Heritage will not be waiting.
It is therefore critical and important to ensure that we expand our taxation base. Instead of deepening, we should be looking at widening. We should ensure that we support local governments to collect even revenue on behalf of URA. We should be able to support Uganda Revenue Authority financially and also physically to collect more taxes.
As Uganda Revenue Authority, we want to leverage, especially on the technology. We've introduced things like IFRIS, what is the electronic fiscal invoicing receipting solutions, which will help us, not only we as Uganda Revenue Authority, to be able to monitor real-time compliance, but it will also help the businessmen to be able to control what comes in and what goes out, and be able to account for it properly to improve our revenue mobilization.
The return to fiscal consolidation should be accompanied by structural reforms. These reforms should focus on generating inclusive growth and enhancing private sector and human capital development, including through strengthening public financial management and governance frameworks.
I think as a country in our fiscal policy making, we need to do enough to get the economy back to the pre-COVID trajectory of growth, but also be mindful of investing in areas which are transformative. And finally, fiscal indiscipline has to be addressed.